Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Real Hawk Talk. I am Brian Nemhauser. And before we get going today, I'll bring in the fellas here in a second. I have a rule on this show, on this channel, with sports in general, is to stay out of politics, stay out of all the stuff that I think we try to, escape from with this stuff. But the events that happened today, I think, are pretty upsetting for a lot of folks, no matter what your politics are. And just as an American, I think it's a pretty sad state of things. And I, I just want to say, I grew up in a place where, wildly different politics, wildly different religious beliefs. I know what that is like. And my best friends through high school, through college, a lot of them have wildly different political beliefs and wildly different religious beliefs. And I love them to death, and they love me. And one of the things that I'm super grateful for is that I can do something as frivolous and superfluous as a podcast and a blog about football and a team that I love, because this country has been so successful in kind of coming together across so many different boundaries. And part of the things I love about sports is that you can have any different belief, but as long as you're a Seahawks fan, we've got something in common. And all I want to say is, I hope that folks find comfort in people around them. I hope folks choose to find ways to talk about what doesn't work with them, where they disagree, and find some discourse that isn't so toxic. I know I'm not solving any problems here by saying this, but I just want to add my voice to the notion of, like, let's be what makes America the country that we want it to be, and not a place where people are getting killed for having beliefs that differ. And that's not as I'm not supporting Charlie Kirk's beliefs or not. I'm just saying, man, let's find another way to get through this. So with that said, I will tell you the rules don't apply to me in this one case. I brought it up. This would be a very rare occurrence. If there are comments about politics that show up in chat or on this video, I will remove them. So save your breath if you're going to go on some long rant. I get to do this because it's my channel. But this will be a one-time thing, at least as much as possible. So with all that, let's bring in the fellas. Let's talk about something less serious, less concerning. Let's talk about the Seahawks. We've got real Jeff Simmons, who looks like he's a ghost in someone else's house. Maybe turn off your background, man. Whatever background thing you got going on, don't worry about it. We're fine with wherever you are. It's okay. And Evan Hill at Evan Hill HB. Yeah, you're good, Jeff. That's way better. So, man, Evan, you were here in Seattle. Got to see you before the game. Did not get to see you after the game. How did it go, dude?
Brother, I had so much fun outside of the outcome of the game. Jeff, we missed you. We had a really fun weekend. We got to meet a lot of people on Twitter that I had not previously met before. Rob Stadden, we got a wonderful chance to meet him and have dinner on Friday night. We ran into a ton of really cool Seahawks fans on Sunday. We had a spot that I had not been to previously that Brian had invited me to, and there were several fans in the bar that came up to us and were like, "Hey, long time, supporters, watchers of the show." Bought us rounds of shots. Like, we're super kind, super courteous. And it was just great to be around. So it was great to see friendly faces. Week one had tons of excitement. Obviously, the outcome did not go the way that we anticipated. My voice is still a little scratchy. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I lost it, but my voice by the end of the first quarter. I was an absolute demonic lunatic, almost at Brian levels, traditional Brian levels for week one. And I'll just say this, like, there's a lot we can talk about with this game from week one, but I was so impressed with Seahawks fans, in that home opener. I had not seen the stadium that loud in a long, long time. I typically could try to go to like one home game a year. So I always have a sort of reference point. And I was just telling Brian, pre the live show here, is my reference point for the loudest I had felt it being that loud. It probably been like, honestly, like maybe 7-8 years. The game I called out was I think it was a divisional game where the Panthers came to town with Cam Newton. Cam Chancellor got that awesome pick 6. That felt like a really loud game to me. And I was just so proud of the Seahawks fans that showed up. I know there was some discourse and discussion online about how many Seahawks fans showed up. The stadium was overwhelmingly Seattle-based fans. There was a lower portion of the bowl on the away side that sure had some 49er fans, but I believe those are licensed outside of the fan base anyways. So overall, it's just great. Really good to see everybody. We missed you, Jeff. But I wish the outcome had gone differently. So
yeah,
that
Jeff,
was a rant.
we get to see you in a few weeks, though. You still aiming to meet us in Arizona? Oh, we don't hear you, dude. No volume, no mic.
He better still be showing up in Arizona. That's all I gotta say. Can't hear you, buddy.
Nothing, dude.
Brian, are you sitting in? Actually, can I ask you this live? Are you sitting in the press box, or are you?
Yeah, I'll probably be in the press box for all the road games.
All the road games. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
We'll see if I can we'll see if I can see you guys before the game, but don't know. Mr. Pearson has been very clear, if you're going out there and partying, then you probably should be in the press box and asking questions at the post-game press conference. So
what does he care what you do on your off time? He doesn't have you 9 to 5.
Can you imagine what my questions would be like if I was allowed to be there while I was drunk after a Seahawks game? Like,
it's so embarrassing why my mic wasn't working.
Why we didn't plug that in?
I hit the button that turns off your mic on your computer, and I didn't realize it was off.
You just got quiet again. What? Can you say something, Jeff?
What?
Oh yeah.
No, we got you.
You're good. You got quiet for a second.
Are you still going to the Cards game?
You can hear me?
Yeah. Are you still going to the Cardinals game?
Yeah. I'm still coming to the Cards game.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I had this thought, guys. I mean, this is like the pros and cons, man. So Brock Purdy injured, gonna miss probably a few games. George Kittle on IR. Trent Williams basically looks like his career this is it, man. He looked washed. You go on down the line. They cut their kicker. If the Seahawks win that game, that's the end of that 49ers era. Yes?
I don't know if it's the end, but it's definitely a milestone in like a directional shift for that franchise. And can I just say something before we shift to Jeff's takes, because I want his perspective on the game for sure. You guys remember when the Legion of Boom would play like a team, and that team would just be like going into the next week have like 4 or 5 injuries, and it was like every single week that team would like physically dominate somebody, and the other team may, I think they went. Did they go 13-3 that last year? So
yes.
Yeah. So they lost 3 games. But even if, after every single one of those losses, every single team just came away obliterated. They were so physically dominant. You were just going to get beat up. And honestly, upon rewatch, and I know you guys chatted about it in the post game and throughout the week, but I was much more encouraged after watching most of the game on rewatch and just kind of going through the other games that were played across the NFL as well. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but the damage, that we did from just being a physical football team, I think is encouraging.
Yeah. I echo that. It's not like, oh man, we're glad that they got hurt. That's not that. It is evidence of how physical the Seahawks were playing. And it wasn't just that other teams got injured. Their record in the weeks following playing the Seahawks.
Yes.
Like they always lost the following week because they just so much was taken out of them. And unfortunately, Evan, like I was holding my breath a little bit, waiting for the practice report to come out because, Mike McDonald's not going to tell us ahead of time if anyone else got hurt. Like, unless you saw someone leave, he's not going to say it. And so sure enough, the practice report comes out today. Devin Witherspoon did not practice today with a knee. Julian Love limited with a groin. You've already got Nicky Minwari, who I guess there's some good news that he might not going IR. We'll find out about that. Ernest Jones limited with a shoulder, and Jaron Reed limited with a back. And so it wasn't just the 49ers that took some beating in that game. Thankfully, it looks like a lot of these Seahawks guys are not necessarily out a long time, but we don't know what the deal is with Devin Witherspoon. So that was a physical game. And as it works now, both sides usually come out of those games a little bit worse for wear. And we'll see over the next few days whether or not that was just precautionary rest or whatever. The good news, I guess, I don't know if you saw this, but Uchenna Nwosu was a full participant in practice today. And so he and Jake Bobo, who's also a full participant, seems like there's a chance they might play this week.
Yeah. I mean, the Brock Purdy stuff on the Niners side seems worse than what we initially anticipated. Did you see some of the reports that came out today?
I did. What were you reacting to in particular?
The toe turf side of things.
Turf toe, yeah.
The turf toe. I know he had injured his opposite
shoulder.
throwing shoulder. Yeah, but the turf toe thing, that can be really bad and take a while to recover from. It sounds like it may take I heard rumors of like maybe up to 3 weeks of him being absent, which Mac Jones, I'm not convinced is gonna be an adequate replacement player for them. So,
well, I mean, Kyle Shanahan wanted Mac Jones a long time ago and not Trey Lance, and so now he gets his chance to see what that life is like. And from what I heard, Mac Jones played pretty well for them in preseason and practice. We'll find out, and they get a pretty simple team to play against. I think it's in New Orleans, but they're without a lot of guys. So we will kind of see, how that team goes. But this is not a 49ers pod, so we're not going to go much deeper on San Francisco. But Jeff, we got you back.
Let's hope so. I got some issues going on right now, but let's hope this works.
Yeah. So I have a question for both of you, but I'll start with you, Jeff. If
Sure.
all you knew about the Seahawks was their defense from Sunday, how many wins would you project that team to be?
Probably 12.
Evan, all you knew was the defense.
oh man, I'd be tempted to even go up to 13, frankly.
Yeah. For
Because
me, it's like Go ahead.
it's a top 3 defensive unit, I think.
Is Woolen starting or is he on the bench in this scenario?
It's just what you know from that game. That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
We'll
talk
they
more
should have
about-
won one because of the defense already, but
Right. So I for me, it was like an 11 to 12 win defense. I'm not sure I'm in the top 3 level yet with them. I need to see more pass rush getting home and more chaotic turnover kind of situations. But 11 to 12 seems pretty easy to track. If all you knew about that team, the Seahawks team, was their offense, and you didn't know anything about their defense, how many wins would you project for that team, Evan?
Oh God. If we're extrapolating that and they can never figure out the play action and they're calling play action rate at 8% a year or of the season or whatever, I think we're talking 4 or 5 wins.
Jeff?
yeah, if they play like that and they're trying to beat Ryan Grubb offense, I think with Evan, I think that's 3 or 4 wins.
Yeah. I was at like 5 to 6, but the reason I'm doing this is because what that gets you to is the team that we saw on Sunday probably is a 7 to 8 win kind of team. Do you guys agree?
I do not agree with that.
Tell me why.
I think we can. I mean, let's start with the size of the ball, right? Like I think Seattle's defense came out. If Tariq Woolen doesn't commit, 2 crazy critical football errors, misjudging the timing of the football on one drive, the summary of that game is Abe Lucas shut down Nick Bosa for 80-90% of the game, and we have one of the best defenses in football. Like, they gave up only 10 points through 58 minutes of football, and I thought Brock Purdy actually played pretty well. But offensively, it feels like what we witnessed was more a reflection of a poor game plan on Kubiak's part and less like, Sam throwing wildly inaccurate passes, making the wrong reads. I feel like that would be way more concerning to me, is if, Kubiak had schemed a ton of guys open and Darnold was just missing them, that'd be a big freaking problem. But that didn't happen. Sam actually played like a pretty decent game, and it felt like, he didn't take any major risks, but parts of the offense weren't helpful. I think those bubble screens were destined to fail from the start. I know I saw some stats that they did like 5 bubble screens for a total of like -7 yards, which was the worst in the NFL, obviously, that week. And the JSN fumble didn't help. So I think there were just some momentum killers. But the game plan stuff, like with Mike's sort of mentorship, like I think Kubiak hopefully can fix, because that just feels like a game script sort of like play calling, down to down type of decision. So that's my high level sort of rough analysis. Is I would be far more concerned. I don't even remember what the original question was, but I would be far more concerned if Darnold was wildly inaccurate, right? So that's my take.
It's an impressive game. It depends. Like coming out of the preseason, I was pretty excited about the offense. And all of a sudden we got put into a shell and we had to watch a totally different offense that was going shotgun. There was one play action pass. They weren't able to run the ball. They weren't doing where the run looks like the pass. It wasn't all marrying together. And it is just tough. That offense we saw on Sunday, if that's the whole season, this is going to be a painful year. But I agree with Evan. I didn't understand all the comments about Sam Darnold and all these ideas about he's ruining the offense or they're calling it. Like you hear Daniel Jeremiah, and I'm not the biggest PFF guy. Obviously, I could complain about PFF all day, but they graded him in the low 80s. And I know, Brian, when you watched the film, you came away kind of impressed with him too. So if it was what Evan said and he's missing throws or it looked like a statue, like I don't know if you guys saw Jared Goff the other day. Did you guys watch the lines at all?
I did not.
He looked like with a worse offensive line, he looked scary. And all of a sudden you project that team and you're like, hey, that's a team. But we didn't really see anything. There was no rollouts. There was no play action. The whole point of this offense was to make it easier that they don't have these kind of high-level playmakers we're used to. I don't know what to see. We need to see something. We need to see something different because I think there were encouraging signs. Just I don't know what the hell Kubiak came up with it. You can see how angry Mike was when you asked him, and when he did the interview with Brock and Salk, he was pretty pissed off about it. You got to wonder, like, how does this keep happening? How do they keep getting away from their plans? Like, does Mike not know the plan? Can he not say on the headphone, like, call the freaking offense? Like, it seems like it's happened 2 years in a row. Like, at some point, like, you got to wonder, like, why is this not happening? Why is this happening again?
I think that you absolutely have to wonder that. And I am known as, people are like, oh man, Brian's a homer. And I'm like, do you think you're like breaking news by saying that? I'm a Seahawks fan. I'm always going to be more optimistic where possible. I'm always going to look for reasons to be hopeful. I'm going to try to be honest, but here's the thing. That offense, that was not a professional offense. We have seen non-professional offenses here for a few years that just like the sequencing of the play callings off. The game plan coming in is off. The adjustments are off. They are not actually doing what they say they're doing. You've got Mike Salk, who thinks he's going like a clever phrase saying, you have to run the football if you want to run the football. Like that's the level of analysis that's been necessary the last couple of years. And it was a repeat. It was a redo of that. And I don't understand how that happens. I don't understand how the first game of the season after month, like Mike McDonald knows that his career as a head coach is somewhat tied to his decision with Clint Kubiak and with this offense actually meeting this identity that they've said a million different times. And to come out in that first game with one play action pass attempt, I don't think there's any excuse for that. And I like, yes, we've talked about Kubiak and I'm a huge Mike McDonald fan, but that's inexcusable for Mike. And I think that's part of why he was so pissed. Like, so, I mean, that was a non-functional offense, and we've talked a lot about that. I agree with you guys about Sam. We've talked about that before too. I think there's at least a yellow to oranges flag about Cooper Kupp. It might be full red. Like we all thought last year that guy was washed, and they signed him, and none of us were like, "Oh, this is the best signing ever." We knew it was a risk, but that was a concerning game. And so I the reason I'm spending some time on this, guys, is because I want us to look each other in the face, look in the mirror a little bit and say, all right, what about this receiver room, which we had questions with? I think the offensive line, I felt pretty encouraged by. So I don't feel like it's the same offensive line. That one I can kind of set it. Do either of you feel like, oh man, this looks like it could be a disaster offensive line? No. Okay, so let's set it aside. The receiver room was a concern. Do you guys, what's your feeling about Cooper Kupp after one game? Jeff, go ahead.
He looked slow. He didn't look explosive. The drop and the attention to detail was a little concerning, not getting that first down when he needs 7 yards. But you did see things like at the end of the game, Daniel Jeremiah talked, and Brock, you were talking about this. He's wide open in the middle of the field for a walk-in touchdown. And he's still getting open. He just looks non-explosive. And he looks just kind of like a guy at this point. The Kupp that made him so good is he was so quick, and he was able to get open. He was able to separate so quickly. His blocking still looked pretty good, but he just looked like a receiver near the end of the career. You see some of these guys. He just looked kind of stiff. And, again, that's where Horton and Arroyo and Barner, I think those guys are more – I think we're all pretty understanding what Kupp is. I don't think any of us were like, oh, Cooper Kupp's going to return to the dude from 2021. But they didn't even target Horton. They barely targeted Arroyo. They were using Kupp they weren't really throwing to him in the middle of the field. It was just a kind of weird usage, and I think they really need to use these other guys and see what Horton can do, what Arroyo can do. Bobo is going to be back this week. I think it can't just be Kupp as the number 2 option and that's it. They really need to use this whole complementary of guys.
Yeah, Evan, part of my concern is how many games are we going to burn before they maybe come to the same conclusion we do? Or maybe they already know, but there's some sort of we paid this guy a lot of money and he's a leader in that room. We have to respect him before we kind of move him to the side. How many games are we going to burn with him as the number 2 target before maybe they realize he can't be the number 2 target?
I mean, I guess my question is is somebody going to beat him out? Is there somebody better than him? Because I didn't see Torrey Horton creating too much separation on Sunday. And granted, he's a rookie, game 1 in the NFL, 5th round or whatever it was that they selected him in. So it's not crazy to expect him to be super productive week 1, or it is a little bit, I think, strenuous to expect him to be super productive week 1. But I would just remind folks they signed him knowing very well that they could get out of that deal after 1 year. So there's no long-term commitment here. Keep that in mind. But he looked slow, and that third down drop, that third down conversion that he, flipped on, that was rough. It was not a good Sunday for Cooper Kupp.
So tell me this, guys. We know that they established that Sam played pretty well. I really don't think he had an off-target pass for the most part. The only pass that I would say was off-target was the 4th down pass to Kupp in the end zone where they got a holding penalty. And I'm just not sure if Kupp was just too slow. I mean, yes, he got held up a little bit, but Sam threw that to the corner of the end zone, and it was Kupp that was 4 yards away. Maybe he just couldn't get there fast enough, right? For the timing. Right. Anyway, Sam was pretty good.
Can I just say something real quick?
Yeah.
I got to speak on something. I'm going to go there.
Hit it.
I am so freaking sick of seeing people in week 1 already coming out with an agenda against Sam Darnold. Give the guy some freaking time to actually prove himself. I'm seeing some tweets oh, thank God the Seahawks saved $5 million on not extending Geno Smith. What part of you was watching week 1 and thought Sam Darnold was the freaking problem on this football team? He was accurate. He had command of the offense, but the game script, the game plan was freaking terrible. It was nothing we expected going into week 1. Okay, so I just think people are showing their hand a little bit. Can we root for the quarterback that we signed in the offseason? You may not have loved the deal. You may not have loved the value. You may miss Geno Smith. But can we root for the freaking quarterback that's on the Seattle Seahawks? Is that too much to ask? Do we have to come in week 1 already rooting against the guy? I'm no Sam Darnold lover, but why are people doing this? Like, do you not want the Seattle Seahawks to be successful? Do we have to be constantly like nitpicking and looking retroactively and being like, oh no, they should have spent $5 million more on a player that wanted to be out of here than that asked to leave. Fuck off, dude. Root for the Seattle Seahawks. Can you be if you're a fan of this team, be a fan of this team. This is obnoxious. And I'm getting a little tired of it. So,
and what? Me and you always don't see eye to eye on this stuff, and we come from very different perspectives. But I found myself in these like Twitter battles on Sunday night with the same thing, and I ended up staying like an extra 2 hours up because I was in these stupid Twitter fights. It's one of my worst qualities.
That's not
Brian
a good choice, Jeff.
Brian always makes fun of me about this, like being a Twitter police, whatever. But like, I saw the same thing, and I was like, if he comes out and he misses a bunch of
exactly.
If he missed a bunch of throws or threw interceptable balls or turnover-worthy plays, I didn't see that. I saw a guy who was just being held back by a bad game plan. He wasn't asked to do much. Some people thought he played well. I thought he was fine. If you come out and you're like, oh, it's Darnold's fault. They fumbled the ball. And I was like, there's so many things you could have pointed to in that game. It's just agenda-driven bullshit at this point. And if he comes out and blows it and misses throws or makes bad
100%.
reads, or he's forcing the ball to JSN at the expense of other open guys, yes, go ahead. Like, I am not a Darnold guy. Like, to me, he's a placeholder. And I hope he does well. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he's a franchise guy. But, like, come on, guys. At some point, it's like, put your priors out of the way. It's over. Like, get over it. Gino's not coming through the door.
I hear you guys. And I've been frustrated by some of that as well. At the same time, some of those reactions came out at a similar time, probably that we were having our own reaction to the game, and maybe people hadn't watched it a second time. And I will say it wasn't unreasonable to watch that game the first time and be like, oh man, the reason the game plan was what it was because they don't trust Sam Darnold to do more than what they had him do. I don't think that was the case. I think they were concerned a little bit about the offensive line holding up in pass rush. I think they thought that they had reasons that I asked Mike McDonald today about quick passes and quick game. Why do teams do that? Like, what are the situations where that's important? And he was talking about, like, also if you're going to play an 8-man box, it opens up the outside, and the 49ers are stacking the box a lot. So they thought they probably could get them on the outside. Like, there was reasons that weren't about Sam Darnold that they did the game plan that they did. And that last drive, guys, don't tell me that didn't look different than the rest of the game. Like, they opened it up, he was passing, and he was good. And so, like, I had this really wild take. I can't remember if I was on with you guys when I had it, but like, there was these like tiny echoes of the Russell Wilson Chicago game where like they finally took the handcuffs off of Russ and just let him play. And part of me felt like they had handcuffed Sam that whole game. And like, this guy was MVP level for a lot of last year. And if you watch JJ McCarthy for 3.5 quarters of that game on Monday night, like, you can see that like Sam Darnold was playing at a high level to do what he was doing, even with that Minnesota team. So yeah, I think the Sam stuff, I think you're right that people need to give him a chance. I'm someone that's been consistently saying, I think it's a step down from Geno Smith. I hope I'm wrong. I'm cheering for Geno Smith. Evan, I know you're not, but like,
definitely not. Yeah, definitely
I know.
Yeah.
I was there. I saw you enjoying his interception, but 100%, like give this guy a chance. But that's where I want to get to this next question, guys. I want to move to the next thing. It's like, okay, so we've seen what they did in this game offensively. Now you go into a game against Pittsburgh, and it almost doesn't matter who you're going to play next, but we know who they're playing. Do you want them to go to an under center, run centric play action offense like we've been told they're going to do, even if that kind of plays into the Steelers defense's hands? Like, what do you want to see? Like, what do you want them to do now? Not looking backwards. What do you want them to do now? Evan, I see you're about to say something.
Can I share some stats about the Steelers defense that will frame this conversation up?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So did either of you watch the Steelers-Jets game in week 1? Okay. I think, Jeff, you did, or you didn't. But
I caught clips of it, but I didn't see them much on defense. I was confused seeing them allow so many run defenses.
Well, Hall, their running back, looked like a new guy year over year and ran the ball down the Steelers' throats. And I took some notes here because I thought this was super, super interesting because this is a defensive line like traditionally, historically known for dominance, but on the interior, particularly, they've got some real issues. So the Steelers' run defense saw 15 snaps in wide zone, okay, against the Jets. 12 of those 15 snaps went to the left, away from TJ Watt, okay? Of those snaps, PFF gave them a 53.7 run defense grade. We don't really love PFF, but whatever. It's a stat. It's a number. They allowed 5.5 yards per carry, and they allowed 5 explosive runs, okay? So I think this frames up Seattle to be in a pretty good position going into Pittsburgh. The left side of that offensive line, in my opinion, running away from TJ Watt, is the best side of the offensive line. Charles Cross, Zabel, Sundell, right? So it's an opportunity, I think, for them to reestablish their identity that they talked about all offseason long, right? That they were going to be a running football team, that they're going to run it down your throats. The Jets did it to the Steelers in week 1. We didn't see that really happen with the Seahawks against the Niners. There were some semi-successful runs. I think there's maybe like 2 or 3 that I can remember off the top of my head. Maybe there were more, but it'll be interesting to see how they approach back utilization, I think, as well, going into week 2. I'm curious to see if Charbonnet gets more snaps against this Steelers football team. So if you're a fantasy football fan, I'm just going to tell you right now, Charbonnet is the guy to own. And I think he's on Jeff Simmons' football team or fantasy football team.
Even this week.
And I literally played Jeff Simmons this week, by the way. I'm going to cook his ass. But I thought those stats were interesting in them going up against the wide zone. So
those are good. Jeff, I mean, yeah, I was actually talking to Jalen Sundell today. One of the things he mentioned was just like, this is a completely different front. It's almost the opposite front, like the 3-4 versus the 4-3 kind of Robert Saleh versus the Steelers. That means different blocking. It means all sorts of different things. I will say, like, Cam Hayward didn't play great. Alex Highsmith, their edge on that side, actually had 8 pressures, but did not play so well against the run. Peyton Wilson, the linebacker, didn't play so well. This is going to be home against Pittsburgh. Are you really buying this notion that all of a sudden the Steelers are a weak run defense?
I'm not there. I've made the point before. Week 1 is not predictive. I sent a tweet out like before week 1, and I went over all the things that happened last year. Jaden Daniels looked terrible. We saw that Bo Nix game in Seattle where he looked like the worst quarterback you've ever seen. Stuff with the Seahawks, Ken Walker, they looked like an amazing run team. They won the game purely because of their running game. Week 1 tends to lie to you. Historically, you look at something like Daniel Jones was the best quarterback in the NFL last week. A lot of the stuff that happens in week 1 does not carry over. And I just see too much talent in that Steelers front. I think Cam Hayward missed a lot of practice. He is getting older, and we saw with Trent Williams what happens to older players, but I'm not there. I'm still in the camp of fade pretty much everything you saw last week, except for a couple things, obviously. But no, but to answer your question before, Brian, I think they got to establish who they are. I think for this Kubiak thing to work, for you to really set this tone of how you're going to run an offense, and I don't think they're in the position to be that chameleon team where it's a different thing every week. One of the things that's bothered me about the Seahawks over the years is when they get away from dictating the terms and they're trying to counteract what they're seeing, even like going back to the Marshawn Lynch thing at the Super Bowl. Like, that's kind of what bothered me about it. I think that's what pissed me off so much about last week. They let the Saleh dictate how they're going to play the game, or Bosa, and they got away from who they were. And I think even if it comes at the extent of offense being slow, I think for this thing to work over the course of the season, they got to have an identity and they got to stick to it.
Yeah. That to me is like a really fascinating question this week, because there's another thing where we just talking about Sam Darnold played pretty well. He looked great when they actually opened up the offense and let him target downfield and actually trust his offensive line to pass protect. The pass protection was pretty good in that game, despite the fact that it ended with a fumble. And so there's generally, like, when I asked Mike McDonald today, how do you beat an 8-man front? First thing he said is throw over the top. So there's a legitimate, like, if you knew nothing else and you weren't trying to establish something, you're just trying to win a game. The Steelers played an 8-man box almost 30% of the time against the Jets. The 49ers did it 23% of the time against the Seahawks. So that's how much the Steelers generally walking up a safety. They got a single high shell. Like, they're daring you to throw over. And so the Seahawks, if they come out and they're like, we're going to be the rough and tumble, we're going to run it at you, we're going to run our wide zone, it might be the same level of run effect that we had before. And then you're talking about these third downs that are third and long, and you've got TJ Watt on one side and Highsmith on the other side, or Nick Herbig. They sometimes do a 3-edge look. I don't think that's a great setup either. So I hear you guys. Like, I think the question is, are you willing to lose a game in order to say we're going to be who we said we are? If that's the result, like, we're going to run what we run, we're going to run our play action off of it, and we're going to live or die by it. Or do you say, you know what, we think Sam Darnold can do more than what we gave him credit for, and we're going to give him a chance to do that early on? I think it's a legit coaching question that they're probably grappling with. So defensively, my goodness, they're going to be going up against Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf. Calvin Austin had a nice first week, but Jalen Warren's a good back. That offensive line for the Steelers is a question mark, especially the left tackle. I know Evan wants to talk about that. But if you're missing Devin Witherspoon, if you are missing, if you've got an injured Ernest Jones, if Julian Love's got a groin injury, like, do you feel like you got the horses to hold them down in Pittsburgh?
Jeff, you take this.
It's a really hard question to answer. If they're all injured or banged up, it's going to be a really hard game for them to win. There's so many ways they can attack you, and all the talk about Rick Woolen, if Witherspoon can't play, Rick's starting in the game. So it's only Wednesday. Some of these guys might be getting rested. That was a very physical game. We saw what happened in San Francisco. If all these guys are banged up and they're just not healthy next week, it's going to be a really challenge. They're already down even more. He was definitely out this week. And Julian Love is so key to what they do. And they need the horses to be in this game. But it's just such a different matchup this week. I expect McDonald can be able to scheme them up. But it's a big question to see what the practice reports are like Thursday and Friday. I'm going to be watching those really closely.
Evan, yeah, you watched the Jets Steelers game. There was one guy on that Steelers offensive line that certainly is worth highlighting.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of stats I want to call out with. Is it Broderick Jones? Is that how you say his first name? Yeah, that's an interesting first name. First round pick out of 2023 for the Steelers. I think they picked him in the teams, if I remember correctly. But in week 1, this guy allowed 5 pressures, 3 sacks, and had a 42 pass blocking grade by Pro Football Focus. So this guy is their first round pick. I know Steelers fans are really getting tired of him. They don't think he has the fortitude to develop into, I think, the hope of what they drafted him to be. But the other thing I wanted to call out about this Steelers offense and Seattle's defense is the Steelers had 107. So if you looked at the stat line, I'll back up for a second. If you looked up at the stat line, if you just looked at the box score, you would think Aaron Rodgers had this amazing game and he's back to form. But the Steelers had nearly 200 yards. I think it came out at 172. They had 172 yards after catch. So the receivers did a lot of work in week 1. I think that ranked 5th in the NFL. And just for context, or it ranked 3rd in the NFL. Sorry, it was even higher in week 1. The Seahawks allowed 126 yards after catch in week 1 to the Niners. So that was 7th most in the NFL. And I just think when you listen to what Mike McDonald said in the press conferences immediately after the game, and I think when he was a little testy on Tuesday or Monday, I don't remember what day. Monday.
Yeah, Monday.
He kept preaching discipline, fundamentals, details with I think in reference to Reek's situation and some other guys. And I think about those things, the details, yards after catch, like limiting explosive plays. That could be tricky if it poses itself.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I'll say is, and someone in chat beat me to this line. I had this all set up for when I know Evan wanted to talk about Broderick Jones. He's essentially Stone Forsythe playing left tackle for them. Like, that's the level of tackle they got. This guy was a right tackle last year. He gave up 47 pressures last year, was the most on that team. Dan Moore was their other tackle, and Steelers fans are rejoicing that Dan Moore is gone. He gave up a crap ton of pressures this week. So they do have Trey Fatano on the other side. I think he played okay. But look, Boye Mafe, Derek Hall, Leonard Williams basically turned Trent Williams into the town bike. Like, everybody took him for a ride. Like, he was getting pushed back into the quarterback. He had one of the highest, if not the highest, pressure rates allowed by a tackle in the first week. And even a debilitated and decrepit Trent Williams is probably twice the player that Broderick Jones is. So there's a real weak spot on this line to attack, and they don't have Kyle Shanahan's offense, which hides bad offensive linemen pretty well. So I do think that is one of the big opportunities. And guess what? Aaron Rodgers, he's not Brock Purdy when it comes to running around and creating when he's under pressure. If they get pressure, I think I talked about this morning, 44% of the time that Aaron Rodgers was pressured, he was sacked this week. For Brock Purdy, it was 4.8% of the time that he was pressured, it turned into a sack. It's just a huge difference between two almost polar opposite guys in terms of age and mobility. Jeff, go ahead. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you stole the point right out of my mouth.
Oh, no.
And
sorry.
So I did catch some of the Steelers game. I didn't see much of the defense. But what I saw from the offense is Rodgers, when he gets pressured, is kind of like turtling. And he looked like a guy kind of like where even when you saw him last year at the Jets, he hated getting hit. And when the Seahawks got so much pressure on Purdy with a better left tackle than what we're going to see this week, if you can get near Rodgers and you can hit him, they're going to get sacks, they're going to get hits, they're going to get dead plays. You saw it a little bit in the Jets game last year. He just can't move anymore like he used to. And Purdy, to his credit, did a great job of that last week, even to the play of that stupid tight end. But I think if you get pressure on Rodgers, the secondary doesn't become the story we might need it to be. Because I'm not a secondary. I think if the front can get pressure on Rodgers, he's going to throw the ball away or just take sacks. The one thing I noticed, like when Will McDonald got near him, it was dead. The play was dead, and now they're going up with a different type of rush. They can really get to that guy.
I agree. All right, let's move this along because we've got a lot to get to and not much more time to do it. So we've got some Patreon questions, patreon.com/hawkblogger, then we'll get to our picks. Brundon has a question, and Jeff, I'm going to give this one to you. He says, what is the point of a roster with 6 tight ends, fullbacks, if your offensive game plan is not to target or use any of the tight ends or fullbacks?
There isn't one. There isn't one. That's why I was so frustrated. They built their roster. They built their offense in such a specific way. And we saw it in the preseason, and it worked. And then in the game one, they didn't have any of those looks. One play action pass. And that's where, like, you asked the question earlier about, like, running on early downs. You can run the Kubiak Shanahan offense and throw on early downs and still make it look that way and deceive and still do things. You don't have to be running the ball to do play action. There isn't a point. And that's where I found myself just perplexed at their strategy, at their plan of attack. And I'm left with Mike. Like, how did this get through Mike? Like, I didn't understand. So when you're going to add Nick Keller up to your roster, you're going to add 2 fullbacks, and then you're going to play a shotgun offense that it's idiotic. And I felt very frustrated. And the question is dead on. There's 0 point to running that personnel and then putting out the offense they did last Sunday.
All right. A couple more questions. We won't get to them all tonight. Scott in the 503, Evan says, with Justin Fields having success on the ground against the Steelers, will we see some plays designed for Sam Darnold's athleticism, or will we see more of the Jalen Milroe package, perhaps?
I don't know if I need to see any more of Jalen Milroe right now.
Ooh, say more.
It feels like whenever he's utilized, it feels very forced. I'm not I'm not down on the guy. I'm just not. I think he needs to sit for a little bit, get used to the NFL level.
I think, are we all on the same page? Like, I actually am excited about Jalen Milroe being utilized, but not now. Like, this is just, there's so much new on this offense. Can we at least like just get the guys that are doing the normal stuff to do that stuff well? If anything, like if you feel like he's your short yardage thing, then commit to it all the time. That's your short yardage and do it. But like, I don't want these packages coming in and out. Like, just do your offense and set that aside for at least a few weeks.
Yeah, the thing that struck me in that Packers preseason game is he still doesn't look decisive as a runner. He still looks tentative. Maybe that's the speed of the game, and that's his weapon. So if he's not, and now you're at the regular season, if he's not aggressively comfortable as a runner, I don't want him out there right now. I want him to develop. I'd rather them run their offense, because in that Packers game, the thing that really kind of took me back was running didn't look comfortable when he got out to the edge. And that's supposed to be his whole thing. And so maybe it's a tush push he can do, but that play was so crappy and just killed their momentum on that first drive. Yeah, I'm kind of with you guys. I don't really want to see him right now.
Did they not have a designed run for Darnold in week 1 where they rolled to the right side for a pre-field goal?
It was the smartest play they had of the game.
Yeah,
it was their longest run of the game too.
No, was it?
It was.
No, Sam Darnold was there. Oh my God.
But that was just like, at that point, I was so pumped up because it was like the most creative thing I've seen the Seahawks defense do for years. It was such smart game management. And I'm like, that was brilliant. And then they go into the second half and we see them just turtle over for the first half. So, yeah, it was their longest run, but I love the play call there.
It was, I mean, let's be honest. If the Milroe thing had worked, then we might feel a little different. Like if it worked and they kept him in there and they did a couple like fine. But in the moment, even before it happened, I was like, the first play of the game was this beautiful pass to JSN over the middle. And I'm like, all right, let's go. And then they ran for like 4 yards. I'm like, okay, outside zone. I'm like, this is looking right. And then on second down, they bring him in and they run that play. And I'm like, what? Like what?
The sequencing was crazy.
Yeah, the sequencing, and it just didn't feel like, if anything, I can justify as they're trying to learn something in their scripted first few plays about how the 49ers are going to play things. But even then, I'm like, you guys are not good enough yet. You have not won enough yet. You don't have the track record on offense with this team yet to be doing that. Go score points, and then you can get cute a little bit later. All right, one more question we'll take. Evan and Jeff, feel free to chime in on this as well. This comes from Nolan. During Pete's time here, we would often see him go and calm players down when he sees that they're not focused or too hyped up. From the stand, do you notice if Mike often goes around to talk to some of the players or coordinators, or he often just focused on play calling? And I'm gonna expand that. Whether or not we see Mike doing stuff on the sidelines, the fact that Reek Woolen clearly kind of roiled Mike McDonald to the point where he might be getting demoted with Josh Jobe. Do you feel like that speaks to Mike McDonald's ability to reach Reek Woolen, or do you think that's just about Reek Woolen? Evan, that's to you. Jeff, you can answer if you want.
Jeff, you take that.
Look, I know it's easy to blame the coach. It's the easiest thing in the world. But at some point, we just have to – if the guy's making the same mistake 2 years in a row, that Rams game with like almost the exact same play, and I don't want to make this a Reek thing, but the guy was benched by two different coaches who are wildly different. At some point, we got to stop just saying, like, is this the coach's fault? But I definitely feel like the question is fair here. I haven't seen a lot of that from Mike. We had questions about EQ, but at the same time, Pete is so brilliant at that. That is his ability to calm people down, his ability to maximize performance, reach people at a different level. Like, I don't know if Bill Belichick was great at that in game, like calming guys down. Bill Belichick was such a tactician. I don't know if Jim Harbaugh's doing that on the sidelines. He might be the best week 1 coach in the league. Everyone's kind of different. We can't always be just like holding guys to what Pete did. Did Mike Holmgren really do that? He was always swearing at guys on the sideline, it felt like, and yelling at guys. So everyone's kind of different. We don't really, Brian, you're in more of the games than we are, so I don't know if you can tell from your seats. But we don't see we only can see what we can see on TV. And
I don't think Mike's the guy that's going around and having those conversations on the sideline. I think he's focused on the game plan. And And like every coach is going to have different strengths, right? And
That's what I
so
mean.
I will say this though, like he spent a lot of this offseason trying to build connection between not just the players, but the coaches and everyone in that building. They talked about it a lot. That part of what he's seen is the teams that win is that they're physical and that they're connected. And I don't know. I'm not saying I have one side of it. I don't know if a player making big mistakes in the first game and another player, Tyrese Knight, also making some mistakes in the game, getting demoted the game after they make those mistakes. I don't know if that's in the locker room. They're like, cool. We need that kind of accountability, and thank God. Because look, if you've ever worked with a shitty coworker, when I was a manager, this always came up. It's like people are like, oh man, I feel so bad for this person who's not doing their job that well. I have to really help them out and figure it out. And like, no, that person is affecting everybody else's ability to do their job well. So, like you have to represent them, not just this one person, right? I had that coaching point or that management point all the time with people. So maybe Mike McDonald is helping that locker room feel like, all right, there is accountability. Or it's like, oh, it's that kind of environment. You make a mistake and you're going to get benched. I don't know if that's always the best way to like foster that connection. So it's Mike's team. He gets to make these calls and we'll find out, but I think it's a pretty interesting one. So thank you for the patrons, patreon.com/hawkblogger for that. Let's take some sleeper picks and then we'll make some game picks here right now. So let me add you guys to this. We got the sleeper app here. We've got picks that we can make. And we're hoping that Evan doesn't say anything this week that gets me in trouble. It's like every week. That is my hope, that Evan doesn't say something that gets me in trouble, but it rarely is the case. Look at this right here, guys. Look at this. Jackson Smith and Jigba with the green jersey, DK Metcalf with the Steelers jersey right next to each other. They've got Jackson Smith and Jigba with 65.5 receiving yards, and they've got DK Metcalf with 64.5. So they're expecting JSN to have more. Who do you think has more receiving yards in this game? Jackson Smith and Jigba or DK Metcalf?
I hope JSN, man.
That's not. You got to get a pick, dude. That's not. You got to
go with JSN. I'm going with JSN. He's on my squad.
Jeff. Too. Oh, we lost your volume, man. You're muted again somehow.
I'm also going JSN.
All right, so we're gonna go more on JSN. I'm fine with that. Now, this is also interesting. If you go to rush yards, Ken Walker doesn't show up. He doesn't even show up.
These gambling sites are sharp, man.
Wow. Not gambling. These are picks.
My bad.
Daily
Jeff! I'm just kidding.
Not gambling. This is just fantasy stuff. So you've got Zach Charbonnet is the only back showing here. And he's got 46.5. They expect him to have more rushing yards than Jaylen Warren for the Steelers, who they have at 42.5. They have Sam Darnold. They have Sam Darnold listed for rushing yards and not Kenneth Walker. Dude, your man has fallen far, Evan. Like, are you okay?
My man? Wait, what?
Oh, come on.
Sam Darnold?
You could, Jeff, please, dude.
It's not. Well, Evan did draft Sam Darnold in fantasy, and he is no longer on his roster.
It was after week 1. I was like, I'm done with this bimbo.
That might not be a bad choice. All right, so who's going to have more rushing yards? We're going to go with Zach Charbonnet. Is he going to get over 46 yards? I think he had 47 in week 1. I think that's a pretty good bet.
I think it's a really good pick, actually, Brian.
Yeah, what's a bet? I don't know what a bet is.
This is Jeff, like... It's a good pick. It's a good pick. I like Zach Charbonnet on the over 46.5 yards. And then let's talk about touchdowns. We've got passing touchdowns. Sam Darnold is one of the few quarterbacks in the NFL that has 0 passing touchdowns after the first week. Aaron Rodgers had 4. So they've got them both at the same 1.5 passing touchdowns. Who do you think is a better pick to go over or below 1.5 passing touchdowns?
Sam Darnold, because Aaron Rodgers is not throwing any touchdowns on Sunday, actually.
Oh, okay. Jeff, do you agree with that?
No, I'd probably bet. I'd probably pick Rodgers.
Yeah, I think I would go that way as well. So this is what we got here. We got Aaron Rodgers over 1.5 touchdowns. We've got Zach Charbonnet over 46.5 yards. We've got JSN over 65.5. I think that 65.5 for JSN, based on what we saw, like that number might keep going up. Not this week, but in future weeks. Like it wasn't even a great, like super productive game, and he just roasted them. They had no one else to go to, and he still roasted that 49er secondary. So I think that's a pretty good one to pick. And make sure, folks, if you haven't already, grab the Sleeper app. Fantastic app. You can do real-time chat. You get updates. If you use promo code HAWKS, you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. All right, so let's get to our picks about this game. And let's talk about how we think this game is going to go. And we all picked the Seahawks to win against 49ers, yes, right? And Evan, you're all over 49ers Twitter. You provided endless entertainment for them.
They should have won.
They should have won. Jeff, what do you think is going to happen in this game? Walk us through it.
So my initial pick in our prediction show was the Steelers. And I picked the Steelers. I thought this would be with their D-line, I thought this would just be a really tough assignment. Watching the way they got pressure and when watching Aaron Rodgers, I think that matchup, and then watching Broderick Jones, I think that matchup and I hope I'm not fooled like we thought the San Francisco DTs last week would just be a clear win for Seattle. It wasn't. But I think that advantage, I feel good about it to the point where I'm now have flipped my pick. I'm going to take Seattle 24-17. I would not have thought I'd pick Seattle. I think the ability to pressure Rodgers with McDonald and their pressure packages. And when I heard guys break down the film and I rewatched the game, I came away way more impressed with Leonard Williams, way more impressed with the stuff they did to generate pressure. You know what? I'm still mad at the Seahawks because they blew an amazing week of trolling for us. If you combine David Lombardi's health tweet, Brock Purdy being injured, Trent Williams getting exploded, all of the trolling we would have had
for the whole season.
Oh my God, this would have been my favorite week ever. Since David Lombardi's tweet, like 7 of their key guys have gone injured, and oh my God. But anyway, the Seahawks are going to win, and the Seahawks are mostly going to win because DK Metcalf is wearing number 4, which looks idiotic. He looks like a quarterback out there. And I think we've gone through our whole show without talking about DK Metcalf. I think they'll have a fine game, but I think the Seahawks have enough in that pressure advantage where I think it can mask some of their offensive issues. I do think they're going to win.
Wow. Jeff is not one to easily be swayed by emotion. So I love that from Jeff. Evan, where are you on this game?
Yeah. God, I've been thinking about this game almost exclusively over the past 24 hours. I really don't think this team is going to start 0-2. And if they do, we have some real problems. But I think Seattle actually matches up well with Pittsburgh. I don't think their run defense is going to be able to contain Seattle. They struggled heavily against the wide zone last week. I think if Seattle course corrects some of the play calling scripts and the errors they made in week 1, I could see Seattle actually putting up quite a few points on Sunday. The Steelers have like 3 starters injured on defense. They don't have Fred Warner. That's a plus.
It's like a great. No, that's not.
He was really
side. He's so good, guys.
Like Fred Warner, actually he was the guy that jumped out to me on rewatch for week 1. Is he was everywhere. He was blowing up plays left and right.
Yep.
And the good news is we don't have to play Fred Warner 15 games a year. Yeah, 15 games a year. And this is one of those games. So I think we see some juice from the offense on Sunday. I'm going to go Seahawks. I think it's going to be low scoring, though. I think it's going to be like 21-10.
21-10. So that's a pretty comfortable road win. Wow. Okay. Look, here's the thing. I can see a situation where the Seahawks, if I was to look at who has the biggest advantage in this game, it might be the Seahawks pass rush against the Steelers offensive line and Aaron Rodgers and his inability to move. Like, I think that that's a really big advantage. I can also see what Evan's saying. Like, the wide zone might be a good fit here. They may be able to run to the left and do it well. I think Sam Darnold, maybe, I think JSN is going to be able to beat almost anybody opposite of him, and that could be a good matchup. I think the tight ends against a single high shell should be able to hit the seams, and we could see them do some stuff. At the same time, guys, I picked the Seahawks to lose this game before the season. I picked the Seahawks to roll the 49ers, and they lost that game. Now, we're going to find out over the course of the season whether the 49ers were actually just playing really well for that game or whether that's an actual good defense. We'll find out. But I can't, with what I saw in that game and what I believe about playing in Pittsburgh with those pass rushers, expect that the Seahawks are just going to go in and win this game. I think that would be hope and cope and not true, objective, okay, what do I think is going to happen? I think this is probably a loss. I have the Seahawks losing this game to the Steelers 24-17. I think it's going to be, could be close. I won't be shocked if they win. It's not like I'm like, oh man, they got no chance. But after what we saw offensively last week, after what we saw defensively last year, where it took 8 games for them to really settle into a new defense with a new defensive play caller, I think it's just realistic to expect it's going to take a little time. 10 a.m. game, first game on the road for a lot of these rookies. Gray's able, playing, all these guys playing in a hostile territory. I just think it might take them a little bit longer to kind of get going. So I've got the Steelers winning this one. Don't love saying that, but got to keep it real. So for Evan Hill at Evan Hill HB, Jeff Simmons at Jeff Simmons, at Real Jeff Simmons on Twitter. Thanks everybody for putting up with all the different audio and different issues we've had throughout the show. Jeff had some family stuff where crying baby at home and tried to do it at a coffee shop and did the best we could. So hopefully you're able to hear most of that. If you want better audio, stay tuned. As soon as this is over, I'm going to edit this down, take the different audio, sweeten it a little bit, equalize the volume levels, and I'm going to post it up on patreon.com/hawkblogger if you want it ad free. I'll also post it up there for Spotify, Apple Podcast, anywhere else you get your podcast that will have ads. Your choice, which way to go. But appreciate all of you. I do think that there are some super chats. Let me make sure I don't leave without taking those. Hawks fan Matt Man, who's been a member for 17 months, says, hey, how's it going? Matt, it's been a while, dude. Good to hear from you. I'm glad you're doing all right. Dogzilla Monster says, the national media was right. The offense is a question mark. Well, I don't think that anybody thought the offense wasn't a question mark. I think that there was some folks, including myself, that were hopeful that this offensive line and run game would be much more productive than it was in the first week. I think what we don't know is how much of that was due to the San Francisco 49ers being a much better run defense than we expected it to be versus the Seahawks being much worse. We can only find that out over the next few weeks as both teams continue playing their games. Justin JJ says, Evan is back. Hawks need to run the rock. Excuse me. Go Hawks. Appreciate all the super chats. Appreciate all of you. Have a wonderful rest of your night. I'm Brian Nemhauser. This is another episode of Real Hawk Talk. Tune in tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. for Rob Staten, Griff Sturgeon, and myself. Got crossover pod. Should be fun. See you then.